Hey guys, welcome back to Sparkman Homestead. My name is Krista. So it is a gloomy day out. We are now in the second week of February, and this outside is our normal weather. We have not had a good couple of days of sun in a long time. Like, honestly, I don't think I can remember it. I think we're on like month two of this gray, dreary weather, and it's honestly starting to affect me. I always hear about how January is the worst month. You know, we just got to make it through January and then everything will be all good. No, honestly, I find that February for me is the worst month. January, you're still kind of coming off the high of the holidays, and there just seems to be a lot of stuff to get done in January. But February is just like you're just in between. You're in between the winter and the beautiful spring. And February around here is just usually really cold also. So today I thought I would come in the kitchen and I would make some make me feel good treats. They're probably not going to be the healthiest because I believe one of them has quite a bit of sugar in it. But the other thing I thought would be really cool to show you guys is some eggless recipes. I have heard that egg prices are insane at the grocery store, like really insane. So what I thought would be fun today, and I did mention it on last week's video as well, is I am going to show you guys some eggless recipes. For suppers and lunches and stuff like that, I think it's pretty easy to get away from using eggs in those. I don't typically have eggs in those types of meals, but definitely breakfast is a lot harder to get away from using eggs in because most breakfast meals are really centered around eggs, and same with like baked goods. Baked goods usually call for like 1 or 2 eggs in them. So today I'm going to show you 2 recipes that are an eggless recipe. So the first one is just going to be a muffin, but this muffin you could definitely use for breakfast. It is kind of like a carrot cake muffin, but not really. It's called a morning glory muffin. There's no eggs in it. Now there is definitely quite a bit of sugar in it, so this is not going to be a sugar-free recipe, but I think that you would be able to actually sub this sugar out for honey, and I think it would turn out really well. But today we're just going to use sugar in it. And then the second recipe that I'm going to show you guys is just a cupcake. When I used to be vegan, this was my go-to recipe that I would make for the kids' birthday cakes. It is an eggless, milkless recipe. So you don't need butter, which is also really expensive, and you don't need eggs, which right now is really expensive. So we're gonna do a little twist on this cupcake. We're gonna do half of it an orange creamsicle, and we're gonna do the other half of the batter a root beer float. These are amazing. I have definitely made these before, and these are the most delicious cupcake. You cannot even tell that they are dairy-free and egg-free. They're just amazing. Now, if you just want the standard vanilla, you don't have to add the extracts in that we're doing. You would just add a vanilla extract. So this recipe would work perfect if you need to make a birthday cake right now and really just honestly can't afford the eggs. So we're gonna do those 2 recipes today. I just thought it would be really fun just to show you guys that you really don't need eggs or milk to make delicious recipes. These were my go-to recipes. I know that they are delicious. So this is not gonna be an experiment. What? We're not going to do an experiment today. We're actually going to do a tried and true recipe. Now watch today's recipe actually not turn out. I don't want to get too ahead of myself. So that's what the plan is for today. We're going to combat this disgusting wet day. We're actually in a flood advisory today, which I'll show you my backyard. You can see why here we're in a flood advisory. It's horrible. We're about 45 minutes north of Nashville, so we tend to not get very much snow here, and when we do, it's a big deal. But today it's a flood advisory. So let me show you guys what it looks like outside. It is so hard to pick up the amount of sitting water back there. But you see where all of that water is back there? That's my garden. It's underwater right now. I don't have shoes on, so I'm not about to go out there and show you guys and get my feet all soaking wet. Let me just get my slippers on. Okay, I actually put my boots on, so I guess we're going on an adventure right now. Hopefully I don't get soaked. It's kind of just drizzling out. It's not really pouring rain. Hopefully my camera doesn't get too wet. But this is the back garden. I love seeing the difference on what worked soil looks like. So this side of the garden, there is not a lot of water, like sitting water. I mean, there is some because we're definitely getting flooded, but it's really draining really well. This area I've worked on a really long time with a lot of compost, wood chips, and it's just amazing. This area over here where it is very, very flooded, I have barely worked that area. That is only its second year there. Like the camera's not picking it up, but that is at least 3 inches of water. Okay, let's go inside. Let's say hi to the chickies. So we are down to 4 chicks, but they seem to be doing really well. And they're actually starting to get their feathers in, which is really cool. That's why they kind of look all scruffy now, but they're getting big. Guys, hello chickies. So I have had a lot of comments. Actually, I just need to go and wipe my glasses first because the joys of wearing glasses in the rain is that you constantly have to dry them off. There we go. I think you guys are a little wet too. There you go. We're all dry. So a couple videos ago, I think it was a couple videos ago, maybe it was last week's video, I can't remember. Anyways, I had mentioned that I wasn't really going to do a seed haul because they just didn't get very many views. But I actually had quite a bit of comments saying, do the seed haul. So I am going to film a seed haul and show you guys what I am putting in this year's garden. I actually already have some of it started. So I have to show you guys this. Look at the little babies. Yay. Oh, my artichoke sign. Hopefully that didn't wreck the seed. But we have broccoli that's come up. We have some purple cabbage. We have some kohlrabi, and this is a special kind of cauliflower. But we got lots of little babies. We got a Swiss chard coming up. Oh, so exciting. I usually have my grow lights turned on here, but I was doing some work on my computer and those grow lights tend to blind me a little bit. So I just turned them off for a little bit. So I'll turn them back once I'm done working, but I'm so excited to get those seeds started. I did those, I think I started them 3 days ago and they're already starting to come up. So super, super exciting. Those are all cold weather crops, so they can handle a little bit of cold weather. We're definitely going to get some cold weather. It is only February and March, we definitely get cold weather here also. So those will probably go out the end of March. They predict in my area that our last frost date, I think, is the 2nd week of April. Maybe it's the 3rd week of April. It's sometime in April they predict that our last frost date is. I never ever plant according to that because it is never true. We always get a late freeze in April. So I like to save my tomatoes and peppers and all that stuff. I do that in May. Anyways, this is not the gardening video. That will be all information that I'll give you guys in the seed haul. Today is Eggless day. So we're going to get started on the project. I just have my morning dishes in the sink that I want to get put away first. I want to get my apron put on. So once we get that all done, then we can start our project. I need to get my apron on before I start any of the cleaning projects. Otherwise, I will be covered in water or dirt or mess. I've actually been experimenting with my new Nutrimil, and yesterday I did not put the bottom attachment in the right way, and I turned it on and flour literally bombed my whole kitchen. It was such a disastrous mess. It was horrible. I was covered in flour. So I have since learned to check and make sure that that attachment is in all the way before I do that. Turn a light on so that you guys can actually see me. I didn't realize how dark it was in here. I do not like starting any type of project with a messy kitchen. For some reason, I just can't get past the dirt and it literally prevents me from being creative in the kitchen. So I always like to start with kind of a clean slate. We're gonna get started making the cupcakes first because they have to cool down a little bit before we can ice them. So while they're cooling down, we'll do the muffins, but I need to actually check and make sure that I even have carrots in my freezer before we can even make those muffins. Yes, I do. Perfect. Months and months ago, I had ordered a whole bunch of carrots from Azure. And one thing I like to do when I get them in bulk is I like to shred them up and put them into 2-cup servings in the freezer. And then that way I can make meals like this, or not meals. This is not a meal. This muffin could probably be considered a meal because it would be a really good breakfast. Just have that with a side of bacon or something. The other really nice thing about this muffin recipe is it calls for apples, and I have a whole bunch of apples that are starting to go bad. I had bought the apples in October and they are now just finally starting to go bad. So apples are an amazing thing to have to store for a really long time. We're gonna get started on these cupcakes. Now it does call for a non-dairy milk. So if you are non-dairy, use like an almond milk, coconut milk, whatever milk you use, oat milk. I am going to use dairy in this, but if you don't have it, the original recipe actually calls to use a nut milk or a non-dairy milk. So what we're gonna do with this milk is we're gonna turn it into a buttermilk. Now, if you're not dairy free, you can actually just omit this step and just use buttermilk right away. But we're going to make our own because I don't have any buttermilk and it is super, super easy to make. So we're gonna take 1 cup of a whole milk. Again, broken record, you do not have to use a dairy milk. You can use whatever milk you want. 1 teaspoon of an apple cider vinegar in this. And we're just gonna stir it and just let it sit there for a minute. If you don't have apple cider vinegar, you could definitely use just a plain white vinegar in this. So we're gonna get our oven preheated to 350. And then what do we need to do? We need to get the cupcake liners. So you do not have to use cupcake liners in this. I like to use them because I don't like cleaning out the muffin tins. I use stoneware. It's supposed to be non-stick, but I just use cupcake liners because I guess you could say I'm lazy. I don't like cleaning. And this kind of ensures a really non-stick one. I just use these cupcake liners and I get them from Azure Standard and I love them. It's almost like they have a coating in them where the muffins or the cupcakes just kind of slide out of them. They're really, really good. And I think they're actually on sale this month as well. I was gonna stock up on them, but I've kind of got a good stock of them already, so I don't need to worry about that. And I'm just using the large size ones. So this recipe, I can't remember how many it makes. I guess we'll just start with 12 right now. We'll just line our 12 cupcake thing. I think it makes 12, but I'm not 100% sure. I can't remember. We're gonna get our bowls out. I'm gonna use my sunflower bowls because I'm going to channel spring feelings. It's all about the attitude. If you have a gloomy attitude, everything's gonna look gloomy. If you have a nice sunny attitude, then it's amazing how many things actually look pretty positive. So we're gonna have a sunny attitude today. It's not gonna change the weather, but it's gonna change how we feel. That's all that matters. Not really starting to curdle yet. We've got a couple of little, my camera's probably not gonna pick it up. Got a couple little curdles in there. We'll just leave it for another couple minutes. What I like to do before I start a recipe is I like to get all of my stuff out. That way I know I have everything out. So we need to get some baking powder, baking soda. We need to get some flour. And then we need to get our extracts out. Now, if you're gonna do the standard vanilla, you're going to just use vanilla extract in this, but because we're gonna half this batter, we're gonna do half of it orange. At least I'm hoping we are. If I have the extract, we might not even get to do that if I don't have orange extract. Peppermint, strawberry, almond. Yes, we have it. So I'm just gonna use this stuff. This is the orange extract. And then we are doing root beer. So I'm gonna use this root beer extract. I got this root beer extract on Amazon and I can leave it linked for you guys. I have a Ninja Creamy and I use this extract and I make a root beer float ice cream and it is so, so delicious. So I'll leave this extract linked. And then this orange stuff, I can't remember where I got this from. I've had it for a while because I've been making these cupcakes for a really long time. So we don't need vanilla extract in this. We're gonna use those ones. We're not gonna half it. We're just gonna do one. I actually changed my mind because you actually have to add the extract in before you add all your other ingredients. And I do not feel like halving this. So I am feeling, again, because we're trying to channel the sunshine, I am feeling like the creamsicle. So we're gonna do the orange creamsicle today instead of the root beer float. Although root beer float is very summery as well, but we'll just do the creamsicle today. If you do want to do the root beer float, all you're gonna do is just obviously sub out the orange extract for your root beer extract. Oh, we need to get some oil. I'm gonna use avocado oil in this because it's a nice light tasting oil. The recipe calls for canola oil, but I don't use that in my house. I try to avoid seed oils. So we're gonna use avocado. You could definitely use a light tasting olive oil. I would strongly recommend not using a regular olive oil because that taste will come out in it, and that's not going to be good with the cupcake flavor. If you like olive oil taste, then you could definitely do that, but I would strongly recommend using a light tasting one. You also need arrowroot, but you can use cornstarch as well. Alrighty, so add sugar, oil, and extracts and whisk together. So remember how I mentioned that this recipe is not a sugar-free recipe. It has 3/4 cups of sugar in it, and I'm just gonna use a organic cane sugar. You can definitely use like an alternative sweetener to this. Honey might go well in this as well, but definitely if you use like a sugar replacement, you could probably use that in this as well. It's a little bit clumpy. Our oven is beeping, telling us it's preheated. So we are gonna add 1/3 cup of avocado oil to this, and I just ran out of it. Almost enough. Get some more. I've been using a lot of tallow lately, which has been really good for helping me conserve my oil usage. So I have not hardly gone through any oil at all in this pantry challenge. We're gonna use 1.5 teaspoons of this orange extract in here. If you are doing the root beer float one, you're gonna use 2 teaspoons of the root beer extract. And if you're just doing a regular vanilla one, it's 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. This extract just tends to be a little bit more stronger, so you don't use as much. And you're gonna use some in the frosting as well, if we decide to make the frosting. We might not. We might just do like a light glaze on top of it. Okay, and then we're just gonna whisk this together. Okay, and then we're gonna get our milk in here. It's not really curdled a lot, but it's fine. It's got the tanginess from the vinegar. Okay, we'll set that aside, get another bowl. I accidentally reversed the bowls around. You're supposed to use the smaller bowl for the wet ingredients and the big bowl for the dry ingredients. So we're gonna get a little sifter. It does recommend to sift the flour in, so we're gonna get this. Okay, so we're gonna do 1 1/4 of an all-purpose flour, 2 tablespoons of an arrowroot, or you can use cornstarch if you would like. If you're gluten-free and have like a gluten-free flour mix that you use, that's pretty interchangeable with like an all-purpose. You can definitely use that in this as well. Then we're gonna use 3/4 teaspoon of baking powder, 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, and then 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And we'll just sift that in here. It says to add the liquid ingredients to the dry ingredients, but again, we've messed up with the bowl, so we're just gonna do it the opposite. And it's gonna be fine. And then we're gonna stir it together. It says you wanna stir it until it's combined and there are no lumps in it. I really wish this recipe gave me weight measurements because I like to know exactly what the weight is on this, and this is looking a touch bit too runny. You want it runny because it's supposed to be a little runny, but this is way too runny. So I'm gonna add just a touch bit more of flour to this. Just like maybe a tablespoon of extra flour. That should be good. I don't wanna play around with it too much. Get our muffin tin out. And it says to fill them 2/3 of the way full because it will obviously rise up. I have a tendency to overfill things all the time. Okay, we're gonna clean this up just a little bit because we made a good mess. Ready, and then we're gonna get these put into the oven for 22 minutes. Actually, I'm gonna do 25 minutes because I know my oven's always a little bit off. Okay, so that was easy. That's the first recipe done. Like, how quick and easy is that? Now, if you wanna make a cake version of this, obviously don't put it in muffin tins, just put this in a cake pan. The orange creamsicle cake sounds delicious, and I maybe should have did that instead of the cupcakes, but I love the cupcakes because they're just kind of a takeaway. Like, they're easy just to take with you, whereas a slice of cake just seems so much more clumsy. This would make a great birthday cake. For somebody that loved creamsicles, this birthday cake would be amazing. And then put some like sprinkles on top of it with some like whipped cream on the top and make it look like a creamsicle. Yes, ideas are happening. All right, so we're gonna leave these for 25 minutes and then we're gonna come and check them with a toothpick. What I'm gonna do is just get my bowls washed because we're gonna get the muffins started. And these ones are another really, really quick and easy recipe. I need to learn how to read things completely. So on the front of my recipe card here, I see no eggs. I had no clue that there was a back to the recipe. And there's 3 eggs in this recipe. Ah! I'm wondering if we can actually just sub these eggs for applesauce. One really good egg alternative is applesauce, unsweetened applesauce. You could also use flaxseed as an egg replacement as well. Guess what? We're experimenting. I thought we were gonna get away with not experimenting for one recipe, but we're gonna experiment with this one. We are gonna make this recipe anyways, but instead of using the eggs, we're gonna try the applesauce. So we're gonna use 3/4 cup of applesauce in this. 1/4 cup of applesauce, and unsweetened applesauce, is equal to 1 egg. So we're in the pantry and we have a lot of unsweetened applesauce, which is one of the reasons why I like to can the unsweetened applesauce, is to use it in recipes like this. And I think it will taste amazing. It doesn't change the flavor profile of the recipe. It just adds moisture to the recipe as well as it binds the things together. So when you're using an egg in a recipe, it's usually because you want to bind stuff together, and applesauce is a really good alternative to do that. Back on track, we're still gonna make this recipe. The one thing that I took away from being vegan was I learned how to do substitutions for certain ingredients. It is really helpful when you are preparing a meal and let's say you don't have something, to be able to learn what the substitution is. So I got everything out to make the next muffins, which they're called a morning glory muffin. These recipes I have printed all out for myself and I don't know where I got them from. So what I'll do is I will leave them linked below. Like, I will print them out myself and leave them for you guys below. And that way you know exactly the amounts to add in. So I just have an apple here, and I don't know, it's hard to see it, but it's kind of an old apple. It's starting to get really soft. So what I'm gonna do is just peel that apple. We need to have this peeled and grated for this recipe. So we will just do that right now. Take the core out before we grate it. If you do not have applesauce to use in replacement for the eggs, you can use flaxseed mixed with a little bit of water. And I believe it is 2 teaspoons of ground flaxseed with 1 tablespoon of water, and I believe that equals 1 egg, but you would have to double check. I can't remember because it's been such a long time that I've used it as a replacement. Google will definitely be able to tell you the exact measurement for that, but ground flaxseed is another alternative. And right now I feel like ground flaxseed might be cheaper than a dozen eggs, so it might be worth it to look into that. That was a pretty big apple, so I'm hoping that it wasn't too big of an apple to use in this recipe. And the next thing the recipe calls for is some chopped up nuts. It doesn't specify which ones to use. I'm gonna use walnuts because I think that would taste really good with the carrots and the raisins and stuff. I'm gonna use my vintage nut chopper. I found this at an antique market for $3 and I love it. This thing works so awesome. So we need 1/2 cup of nuts. I'm gonna put 1/2 cup of walnuts in here. Spill them everywhere. Probably should, I'm gonna take some of them out. Probably too much in here right now. They still actually make these nut choppers, which is, oh man, I am so clumsy. They still make these, which is really awesome. I know I seen one on Amazon, but you know, I gotta have the retro one. Just put them in and chop them up like this. Look at, so easy. I don't have to get my big food processor out. All chopped up. Our oven just dinged, so we're gonna check these. I need actually 2 oven mitts. I don't think they're quite done yet. We will check them though. Let's see. Oh, yeah. That one's not really done. Yeah, some of them aren't done because I didn't do it quite even. So we're gonna put them back in for about another 5 minutes. We'll get these other muffins started while we're waiting for that to finish. So we're gonna add 2 cups of flour to a large bowl. And this time we're gonna add it to a large bowl. 2 teaspoons of baking soda, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, and then 1 1/4 cup of granulated sugar. I'm just using the organic cane juice, evaporated cane juice, I think it is. Just organic sugar. Again, I think this recipe would do really, really good if you substituted this for honey. I think that would work really, really well with the recipe, but we're just gonna use the sugar today. Just give this a little stir. It's just some clumps of sugar in here. Right, so we have 2 cups of shredded carrots. I just defrosted these a little bit. They're kind of still a little frozen, but that should be fine. We're gonna use our 1/2 cup of almonds, grated apple, and then we're gonna use 1/2 cup of raisins. These are just these flame raisins that I got from Azure Standard. They are huge, but they're so delicious. They're my favorite. Oh, our timer just went off. They're my favorite raisins. I love them so much. I can actually really smell those cupcakes, so we need to check them. I think they're done. Give them a little check. Yep, they're done. So we will let those guys cool down for a minute, and we need to keep the oven at 350 for these muffins. The other thing I forgot to do is get out my muffin tin. Get this lined quickly with our muffin liners. Let's get finished adding the ingredients to this bowl though. So then we also need to add 1/2 cup of coconut flakes to this. And then we'll stir this up. If you don't like any of these ingredients, I am sure that you could take them out. Like if you're not a huge fan of carrot, I'm sure you could take that out and just have it with the apple and raisins and coconut, and it would still be delicious. Again, if you don't like coconut, just take it out. I don't think that it would make a very big difference in the overall recipe. It might slightly change the texture a little bit. So like if you're taking the coconut out, I would maybe add just a touch bit more like raisins or apple to it, just to kind of make sure that you're still using the same amount of ingredients. We're just gonna get this kind of incorporated. Should have used a bigger bowl. So we're gonna get our wet ingredients assembled in this bowl. So we're gonna take some of our unsweetened applesauce. Again, this is gonna be the eggs. So we're gonna use 3/4 cup of the applesauce in here. And we're gonna add 2 teaspoons of vanilla. The recipe says 1 cup of salad oil. So same thing with the cupcakes. I'm gonna use the avocado oil. I would definitely recommend using a lighter tasting oil in this as well. So like a light tasting olive oil if you don't have avocado. And we'll add that in here. Whisk this together. And then we're gonna add this to our wet ingredients, or we're gonna add it to the dry ingredients. So we just wanna mix this until this is just combined. As you can see here, it is a super hearty muffin. Like this is what I was saying, it would be really good for a breakfast because it has a lot of good stuff in it, aside from the sugar. But again, you could probably use honey. Okay, I think that's all incorporated. If you're not using muffin liners, it says make sure your baking tin or your muffin tin is really well greased. I think this is gonna make way more than 12 muffins. So we might have to use our other muffin tin. Yeah, it makes just a touch bit over 12 muffins because we have maybe about 3 more muffins in here. And then these need to go in for 25 minutes. So we'll probably set the timer for 30 minutes because my oven likes to take forever to cook things. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna get these muffins or these cupcakes put onto the cooling rack because I need that muffin tin to make some more muffins. These have kind of cooled down a bit. I might need to get a knife to get some of the edges off. So as you can see, the cupcakes don't get a huge rise on them, and that's just kind of the nature sometimes when you're cooking with not normal baking ingredients. And I mean, we use all normal ingredients. What I mean by not normal is when you're not using the eggs in them. I can guarantee you they do not lack in any flavor by any means. They're delicious. You could take an apple core and take out the center of the cupcake and you could fill it with your piping bag, fill it with some of that buttercream, and then you would have like a creamsicle float kind of cupcake. The options are endless with this. So we're gonna wait for those other muffins to come out of the oven. And then once they are out of the oven, we'll do a little taste test. So I realized when I was making those morning glory muffins, that's the ones with the carrots in it, it uses a lot of oil. And right now oil isn't cheap either. One substitution that you can use in replacement of oil is you can use melted butter. That would be a really good replacement for that oil. Now, if you do use the butter replacement, they obviously wouldn't be dairy free. I'm kind of on the fence whether or not I want to put a huge topping of buttercream frosting on these because they taste delicious just kind of as they are. They're a really nice treat. I'm thinking what I'm going to do is maybe just take some cream cheese, some icing sugar, and maybe a little bit of that orange extract and just kind of make like a glaze and drizzle them with the glaze. We might do that, but we can't do it right now because these are too hot and that would kind of melt the glaze. And I'm eating all of the scraps off of the counter. I'm starving. It's 1 o'clock now and I haven't had my lunch yet, so I probably should. Hey, we could have one of these muffins for lunch because it's a really hearty muffin. So let's wait for those to come out of the oven. And then when they come out of the oven, we'll have a hot muffin with melted butter on it. Oh, I can't wait. Yummy. Timer went off. We're gonna give these a check. I'm thinking that these are pretty moist muffins, so they might not be quite done, but we'll give them a check anyways. They smell really, really good though. Might be hard to tell with a toothpick because of the type of muffins that these are. No, they're not done yet. So normally I just bump stuff up, like let's add 5 minutes, but in this situation, I think what we're gonna do is we are going to add about 10 minutes. The top is browning up really nicely, but the inside is just not cooking. So we'll do about 10 minutes. If after the 10 minutes these get like burnt on the top, which I'm really hoping they're not going to, then what we might do is just cover these with some tin foil or with a cookie sheet if you don't want to use tin foil, and then hopefully that'll prevent the tops from burning. Okay, these are kind of smelling like they're burning and I'm really hoping that they're not. Oh, they are. They're getting really crispy on the top. But we're coming out clean. That means they're all done. Yay. Let me get the other ones put in here. So what I did is I just had enough for 3, but I filled my other compartments with water. That's really good if you don't have a full muffin tin. Just fill them with water and it helps actually put steam in the oven, which helps cook these ones. It makes them not dry out. They look a little brown on the tops, but it's kind of like, you know how a bran muffin gets nice and brown? These are like that. So I'm starving and we're gonna let the majority of these sit in here and cool down before we take them out. But we're just gonna take one out. I'm gonna do a little taste test with one of them because, again, I'm starving. And I don't know if there's anything better than hot baked good coming out of the oven. We've melted butter on it. Oh, it's so good. So very good. Ooh. This is what it looks like inside. Hopefully the camera's picking it up. Okay, we'll put some butter on there. I'm gonna use a fork to eat this because this is YouTube. I don't wanna look like a savage and just shove the whole muffin in my mouth. That, and it's hot. So we wanna make sure that we're not gonna burn our mouth. Yep, these are amazing. Definitely a good breakfast alternative. I know at the beginning of the video I had mentioned that it's pretty hard to find breakfast meals that don't include eggs. Granola is another really good recipe that you could make that you don't use eggs with. The other fun thing that I wanted to mention to you guys, I was on Facebook and I'd seen somebody made a comment about what do I do when something calls for an egg wash? Because an egg wash is kind of a waste of an egg if you're really trying to conserve them. You're not going to use very much of that egg to do the egg wash. So instead of doing an egg for the egg wash, you can take a tablespoon of milk with a little bit of water and it does the exact same thing. It will mimic an egg wash. You do not need to have an egg to get that nice glazy top that those recipes call for when it's asking for an egg wash. Again, I know I mentioned it early, but I really don't feel like putting a buttercream frosting on those. It's just, might be a little overkill, but they are actually cooled down. Let's do a taste test with these guys. Now, definitely it would taste a lot better if you had buttercream on it or if you did the glaze like I was mentioning, but that's just more sugar and I honestly just want like a yummy treat. Let's just see. So this is what they look like inside. They're really, really good and they're not dense. They're nice and airy. I love these cupcakes. They are so delicious. Now, the orange isn't coming through really strong in them. I probably could have added just a touch bit more of that extract. And also by having the buttercream on there with some of the orange extract in the buttercream, it does really make it taste more like a creamsicle. But I highly recommend trying these recipes, especially this one. This one's so delicious and it would be even better with honey in it. We should have did honey. I don't know why we didn't do honey. So that is it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed these couple of little eggless recipes. If you are struggling with trying to find an eggless recipe, one really quick way to find it is just typing in like vegan recipes because you will come up with all eggless stuff. So again, I hope you guys enjoyed it and thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I hope you guys have a good day or night whenever you're watching this and I will see you on the next video. Bye guys.